My dear children, how are you all? Welcome back to English class. In the previous video, we had completed section 2 from the lesson When the Trees Walk by Ruskin Bond. Now let us recall what we have learnt in section 2. Grandfather was fond of trees. He planted many trees around his house. But he was not satisfied with growing trees in his compound only. So he decided to go far beyond the riverbed to plant trees. The author questioned him why he decided to plant trees there when no one would go there. Grandfather answered that he was planting trees not for beauty but for food and shelter for animals, birds, and human beings. Trees attract rain. They prevent soil erosion and keep the desert away. People are cutting down the trees without replacing them. If they don't plant trees, one day the world may become great desert. This thought became a nightmare to the narrator, and thus he helped his grandfather to plant the trees. His grandfather said trees would start to walk again like they did earlier until some busybody cast a spell on them. The narrator and grandfather saw an island that was dry in summer but flooded during rains. Grandfather saw a small mango tree growing there and decided to plant tamarind, laburnum, and coral tree saplings on the island. Now, let us go to section 3. Children, listen carefully and note down the meanings. Let us start. The monsoon season was the time for rambling about. At every turn, there was something new to see. Out of the earth and rock and leafless boughs, the magic touch of the rains had brought life and greenness. Rambling means wandering. The rainy season was the time for the plant to grow over walls or other plants. So, wherever you look around, there was something new to see. Due to the magic touch of the rains, there was life and greenness on the earth, rock, and in the leafless boughs. You could see the broad-leaved vines growing. Plants sprang up in the most unlikely of places. A peepal would take root in the ceiling. A mango would sprout on the windowsill. We did not like to remove them, but they had to go if the house was to be kept from falling down. Children, sprout means when seeds begin to grow into small plants. We could also see the broad-leaved vines growing. Plants grew in different places. A peepal tree would take root in the ceiling. A mango tree would sprout on the windowsill. Even though we did not like to remove them, we had to do to ensure safety of the house. If you want to live in a tree, that's all right by me, said grandmother crossly. But I like having a roof over my head, and I am not going to have my roof brought down by the jungle. Children, grandmother said, if you want to live in a tree, it's your wish. I don't interfere. But I would like to live in a house and not in a tree. Then came the Second World War, and I was sent away to a boarding school. During the holidays, I went to live with my father in Delhi. Meanwhile, my grandparents sold the house and went to England. 2 or 3 years later, I too went to England and was away from India for several years. The meaning for boarding school is a school where students live and study. Due to the Second World War, the author was sent away to a boarding school. During the holidays, he went to live with his father in Delhi. Meanwhile, his grandparents sold the house and went to England. After 2 or 3 years, Arthur too went to England and was away from India for several years. Some years later, I returned to Dehradun. After first visiting the old house, it hadn't changed much. I walked out of town towards the riverbed. It was February. As I looked across the dry watercourse, my eye was immediately caught by the spectacular red blooms of the coral blossom. Spectacular means eye-catching. Blooms, opening of flowers. Blossom means flowers. The author returned to Dehradun after some years. First, he visited the old house. It hadn't changed much. Then, he walked out of the town towards the riverbed. It was February. When the author looked across the dry watercourse, he was surprised to see the amazing view of red blooms of the coral blossom. In contrast with the dry riverbed, the island was a small green paradise. When I went up to the trees, I noticed that some squirrels were living in them, and a quail, a crow pheasant, challenged me with a mellow, "Who are you? Who are you?" Children, the meaning for contrast is variation. Paradise, heaven. Quail and Asian cuckoo. Crow pheasant, common quackle of India and China. It belongs to cuckoo's family. Mellow is a pleasantly smooth sound. Children, the riverbed was dry, but the island looked like a small green paradise. When he went up to the trees, he noticed some squirrels were living in them, and a quail and a crow pheasant asked him with a pleasant sound who he was. But the trees seemed to know me. They whispered among themselves and beckoned me nearer. And looking around, I noticed that other smaller trees, wild plants, and grasses had sprung up under their protection. The meaning for whispered is spoke very softly, beckoned to signal someone with your hand to ask the person to come closer or to follow. Here the trees recognized the author. They whispered among themselves and called him nearer. When the author looked around, he noticed smaller trees, wild plants, and grasses had grown under them. Yes, the trees we had planted long ago had multiplied. They were walking again. In one small corner of the world, grandfather's dream had come true. Yes, children, the trees that grandfather and the author had planted long ago had multiplied now. They are walking again in one small corner of the world. The author remembered his grandfather's words and his dream had come true. Children, what was his grandfather's dream? His dream was to grow trees on the rocky island. Yes, now the rocky island has become a small green paradise and the trees had multiplied. By this, grandfather's dream had come true. Children, we have completed the lesson. Now, can you tell me what you have learned from this lesson? Yes, we have learnt about trees and their uses. Trees play a very important role in our life. Trees are great asset and boon to human race. We have to preserve and plant trees for our future generation. Life is possible without internet, but not without trees and plants. So children, plant trees, save earth. Okay children, I will meet you in the next session. Obey your parents. Take care. Have a nice day. Thank you.